Kevin Durant is back. Devin Booker playing the best basketball maybe ever in his career. And a fun matchup coming up against the Denver Nuggets to close out the week. All of it on today's episode of Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen to close out your week here on Friday, maybe Thursday night. Wherever you're finding the show, go ahead and hit follow or subscribe. Get this show in your feed every single Monday through Friday, plus a bonus episode tonight after the Nuggets game. If you've not done so already, that's the best way to support is just listen, subscribe, follow, stay locked on to your favorite team. You can also follow along at Locked On PHX Suns, where you can give your input every game day with the 7 words or less game take. That is back now that KD is back. It is just attached to him. I'm not going to do it unless he plays. That'll be his pressure to stay in the lineup. Aaron Edwards is here. We're going to talk Durant. We're going to talk Booker. We're going to talk the Nuggets for his weekly check-in. Today's show, guys, is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. All right, Aaron. So, you were watching on ESPN. I was at the game. It feels like there's some games I don't even want to do one podcast episode about, and then there's others where I could do like 3. And so I did a show yesterday, but I feel like there's a bunch I didn't get to. What jumped out to you? The Suns obviously beat Minnesota. Durant played below average, subpar for himself, but had some strong moments. What was your biggest takeaway coming off of that game?
First, I couldn't watch it on ESPN. I had to watch it on Valley because it was blacked out in Phoenix.
What was going on with that? Can you actually really explain that to me? Because I did not understand.
I guess in February or something, ESPN took a game, like they were allowed to take one game on the schedule for the Suns that was ESPN, and they could have it and not Bally's. And I guess they took that one instead in February, so they weren't allowed to have this one here. And it was just a scheduling thing that they in a contract or something. So we weren't allowed
Phoenix, right? Because it was still on ESPN, but it just wasn't able to be seen on ESPN in Phoenix.
Yeah, I think it was like Arizona Valleys. Like, I don't even start me on a Valleys rant, but yeah, that was the thing. Like,
well, they're about to be bankrupt, unfortunately. Or they already are. So yeah, they have their own trouble. But yeah, tell me what you thought of the game.
I mean, I knew KD was still gonna. I think what Warriors say, gravity, like the gravity's never gonna go away. But I think the rust was weird, mostly because he was forcing stuff. It wasn't like last time where he just kind of just took the shots that got to him, and you could tell he wanted to give the fans a show, and it kind of was to a detriment. But yeah, you could tell he felt bad about how the last thing happened, and he really wanted to make up for it, and he was trying to start from the beginning, and that's just kind of how it just shook. Like, don't fault him for it. He was really, you could tell he loves the fans, and he felt just really, really bad about, like, kids were screaming for him when he got injured, and like he was warming up for them. And I think just that was kind of just in the back of his head, and he was just trying a little bit too hard because he felt bad about it.
Yeah, he said, I think his quote post game was like, sometimes you can want it a little too much. And I felt like that was, basically what was going on there. And Chris Paul also added, I think they were talking about, we asked him, like, somebody asked him, what did you make of him missing so many shots? Or like, do you feel like it was, pressure, just nerves, whatever? And he was like, yeah, most of the time when he misses, he just misses. It's not because anybody's making him. And then he threw in, because KD was like right there next to his locker. He was like, except for when I guarded him back in the day, because I made him miss. But I think it was just that, right? It was just some some nerves, and maybe just, he said he didn't feel the ankle, but it's like, even if you're not like feeling pain, you still haven't like, I mean, people have to remember, like, it's not even just this most recent thing, but he's played 4 basketball games in basically 3 months. This was his 4th, right? So, because he got that first MCL sprain in early January when Jimmy Butler knocked into him. So it just hasn't been a lot of court time. So I don't think it's anything. Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit different having Kelly Oubre come back and guard you when you're off for a couple of months than McDaniel guarding you. Like, it's not exactly a terrible defender guarding you coming back from 3 weeks of not playing. Like, the Kelly Oubre was really perfect timing. Like, if you want to come back off an injury, I love the dude, but you kind of want Kelly Oubre guarding you.
On Kelly Oubre out of nowhere today.
It's not hate, but if you're coming back from 3 months of not playing basketball, you kind of want Kelly Oubre to be the dude guarding you.
That's true. KD also got a little bit of a nice, I'm looking at this for the first time, a little bit of some kindness from the home scorekeeper. Jaden McDaniels absolutely blocked his shot. And I'm looking, and McDaniels did not have a block. So they just put that as a Durant miss, which is very respectful of the Hall of Famer. But Kyle Anderson also got him on one. It was a weird game. So unfortunately, I get CP3's point there, but they absolutely were making him miss at times too, which just shows how uncomfortable he was. But to your point on the sort of camaraderie or whatever, the circumstance around his return, I think there was even more attention on this one somehow. Maybe because it just gave people an extra month to realize it and get their plans into place on how to cover this or buy tickets or whatever it was. Doug Haller tweeted post-game how many cameras were around him while he did, I think he did the ESPN walkaway interview or something, with the headphones on, sitting on the scorer's table. That was crazy. People should go check that picture out. And then pregame, I'm sure if you look at any of the videos or whatever of his pregame warmups this time, it was a circus. And I actually happened to be sitting next to Sophie Cunningham during it, and because she does the pregame, and she was there with her mom. And so I was like, is this what they did with you at Missouri? Like, is this what it was like? She's like, yeah, absolutely not. But even she was like, I genuinely can't even imagine that level of attention on every single thing that I do. You know what I mean? And so I don't know if that comes through for people. He's used to it. I'm not saying that got to him necessarily, but it's just a level of fame and like scrutiny, I guess, that even Booker, even Chris Paul, even Steve Nash, like it is another level, and it's not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, I think it also was just the stars aligned to where his first game back was a national TV game, and it was the home game. Like, the first time, it was just a game that you could watch on Bally's, or you needed NBA League Pass to watch. Like, nobody was really trying to watch us play Charlotte, and it was a perfect game for him to come back. And by the time we did get a national TV game against Dallas, it was 3 games in. So, like, it was like he was pretty much in it now, and he knew the system, and he was kind of getting his legs under him by then. So it was a lot easier for him to do like all the press and all the national TV-ness of like playing basketball in a game like that, because he was 3 games in and he was already part of the squad by then. This time it was like, you're back in it, national TV, home game against a team that's trying to make the playoffs. Like, all of this, we're trying to keep our 4th spot. So it was like a lot of just like a lot of stuff added on to a game like this instead of the first time he did it.
Yeah, I think that's all reasonable. I feel like I talked about this a little bit, and we'll get into more of it, I think, when we're talking about the Nuggets game and what could carry over, what they might do differently, et cetera. I thought it was interesting that it felt like they tried to put, and maybe this is just a factor of time, and even though he wasn't practicing and whatnot, they were still doing film study. He was still out with the team doing, day-to-day stuff. But it felt like they, in this game, tried to have Durant be more part of the regular Suns offense, whereas in those first 3 games, it became the Kevin Durant offense in a lot of ways, which is fine. They won all of those, and they won this one. So, look, turns out he could do either one, and it's going to be fine. But that felt, I think, better because you saw a pretty good Chris Paul game, and Ayton had a couple nice moments where he was able to catch lobs and do his thing that way. I don't think it was the best Ayton game, but 9 shot attempts is better than some of the games in that first stretch. So I think that is a good sign going forward that they're going to incorporate him more into their normal stuff rather than it just kind of being the ISO elbow post up show. Not to disparage that, but that's not how they play. And it was noticeable in those first 3 games when they went away from that.
Yeah, and if you watched like maybe an hour ago, Nikias on Twitter, he put up a video breaking down just how open Ayton has been, because it was a play when Anthony Edwards couldn't leave KD. It was the first play of the game with the pick and roll, and Anthony Davis couldn't leave KD. He was one pass away, and Book just went at Gobert and put him in a situation where he either had to come up or stick with Ayton and give Book that mid range that I think the kid said he's shooting like 49% from there right now. So he either had to give him that or give up the alley-oop, and he gave up the alley-oop. And it was like a couple of plays where we put KD in the corner in the Torrey Craig role and just let him sit there, and you can't leave him. Like, it's KD over there. You can't leave him. And they just treated him like they just had him run the plays that Torrey Craig was doing and not doing the ISO stuff. And you still have to respect that KD's in the corner, and it was just so much space in the lane just with him out on the floor. Even if he's shooting like 30%, you can't leave Kevin Durant, because the second they start falling, you're kind of screwed. And I think that was kind of like the bigger part, is just him being on the floor puts a stress on the defense that like we didn't have before.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. And Monty did get asked about it at times post-game last night, just to think of Booker or Durant as like floor spacers, but at times that's what they're going to be. And it's not maybe like what you want them to be first and foremost, but it's going to pull the defense apart whenever they are there. It's going to be somebody that absolutely can't be helped off of. It's going to be somebody who, demands attention. You even see Booker a lot of the time when he is just a spacer, he's like 5 feet behind the 3-point line and they're still face guarding him. So it's weird, I guess, to watch it, but it's going to work. So I hope that I think repping that normal offense more often with Durant, it's going to make everybody a little more comfortable. Let's go to Booker though, because you texted me, you're ready to go. I'm going to let you cook here in this next segment on his All-NBA candidacy. Feels like there's a little more momentum behind it. We'll talk about where that's headed next. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by FanDuel. The tournaments are heating up, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. That's because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in your pocket in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no-sweat first bet. Then wager on everything from the money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the net, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. You're going to be sitting on the couch, ESPN, CBS, the Final Fours for both the men's and women's tournaments. You might as well pop open FanDuel, see what's going on. It's no sweat, as they say. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Okay, so Aaron, I'm going to list you off here to start things off. The top guards in estimated plus minus, which is on dunksandthrees.com, which is the popular all-in-one stat right now. I don't know what the difference is, to be honest with you, but it's the one that the smartest people use, and I'll list it off, right? So Booker is 12th. I'll just give you that off the top, but you'll hear the names and you'll know why it's not a real 12th fully. Damian Lillard, number 1. Luka Doncic, number 2. Steph Curry, number 3. Shea, Kyrie, Harden, Halliburton, Mitchell, Holiday, George, Morant, and then we get to Devin Booker. So I actually think that's a pretty good template of like who the 12 guys in real contention for the 6 guard spots for all NBA are. But we started talking about this last week. I've been on the train for a while of this is Devin Booker's best season, and especially since he came back from the groin, it's the best stretch he's ever had in his career. Tell me what swung you to be so angry, leading a march down the streets of downtown Phoenix on this.
I just think context matters with just him keeping this team afloat for like, yes, with KD out, we are technically down like 3 starters. We gave up 3 like people who started for KD, and with KD not playing, Book had to keep afloat a pretty below average team without another star on it. So I think keeping that team in the 4th spot with all the injuries and all that going on matters. Just just the way he's been playing, just 31 and shooting at like 50% and just getting to the line, like all of it. He's been doing it all for this team. And if Embiid can win the MVP in the second half of the season, Book can get all NBA from the second half of the season. Like Embiid was all but lost until a campaign started for him because Jokic was his, like he was running away with it. And now this campaign for Embiid to be MVP again is starting all on the second half of the season in his same stretch that started after the All-Star game. Like they're on the same type of stretch and Embiid's getting MVP consideration. And I think in that context, if he can get MVP consideration, Book with the way he's playing can still get all NBA consideration also.
If I was good enough at graphic design, I would have made a context matters counter because you told me that you were gonna be harping on that line. Also, if I was good at computer engineering, I would make the camera stop zooming back and forth on you. I don't know why it's doing that. I apologize. Booker in March, 14 games. So he'll have one more. The Nuggets game obviously is in March too, but 500 minutes. All right. And I don't know what the Suns record is in March. It's probably not great. It's like 500, I would say, but
it's maybe
still,
one game under 500, I think.
Yeah. So 32.4 points per game, 4.8 assists, 4.6 rebounds. He's shooting 56% from the field, 42% from three. And really like the shorthand that I like to use for like big, heavy usage scorers is what's their usage rate and what's their true shooting. And true shooting is 2s, 3s, and free throws all into one. Anything over 60 is elite, although in this day and age, maybe it needs to be even higher to call it elite because everybody's making shots. But 33% usage rate, which means he's shooting or turning the ball over on a third of the Suns' possessions. That's the highest for a month of the season outside of December for him. And true shooting of 66%, which is like the chart is broken when you're up to 66 as a guard, right? It's not like it's Gobert who just dunks. That's insanity. And like it makes it almost hard to argue that he's ever had a better month when you just read it off that way. All NBA wise, I feel like you can take Kyrie off.
Yes.
It's just he always is going to grade out at a really high level with that stuff because he's just an unreal shot maker, doesn't turn the ball over a ton, and he's pretty close to neutral on defense most of the time. But I don't think he's going to get the votes because he changed teams, and there's been so many different things with him throughout the season. Halliburton, I don't think is going to get there just because the team success isn't quite there, and as a scorer and a defender, I don't think he's at the level of some of these guys. In some cases scoring, in some cases defense balances out. I don't think he'll be up there. Paul George might be just recency bias, but I also sort of feel like the offensive numbers are lying a little bit with him. I feel like Clippers fans and even regular people who watch the Clippers, he just hasn't had a normal Paul George season, and the Clippers have been not an amazing team. He's not going to have, the wins over some of these guys. And then I would honestly probably take Ja out here, but he's also been playing pretty solid, and the Grizzlies have been really good and actually look like they're going to keep the 2 seed. So maybe I'm wrong on that one. Maybe that's being too harsh. He's still going to play more games than Book, even with the little weird suspension / departure or whatever in the middle of the season. I don't know if voters will ding him for whatever was going on off the court. They might. But the statistical and standings case is still there for him. So maybe that's like a 50-50. But that's 3 guys that I would say I would put Booker ahead of just right off the bat before we even get into like the details. I think the interesting one, especially with this week and the news that's been out there, Aaron, is Lillard. So he's going to finish at 58 games played, and the Blazers will just be bad by the end of the year. Like record wise, he's going to be clearly the lowest in the standings of any of these guys, but his offensive game this year has maybe been the best of any of them. What do you do with him? And do you think he ends up making it?
I think he makes it because the league we're still not in a place where we punish dudes for just being on bad teams. Like he did as best he could with a lot of just G League dudes. Like they weren't a great team to begin with. So if anything, the assumption before the season even started was that he would be in this situation. And if he still balled out, then yeah, he would probably be all NBA because he's Dame. So with that, like hanging over the like season in general, and even before the season, I think that you were kind of just going to give him the leniency on all NBA just because his team was supposed to be bad. That hot start that they showed off with, they were always going to level out just like the Jazz did. So yeah, I think it was just always going to be this type of season for them.
So one more stat for you, and then I want to hear if you have like your 6 to tell me. But so Cody Hunt, who is a good follow on Suns Twitter, found the win percentage swing that all these guys have had. I actually think I didn't say Fox's name.
Yeah, you didn't. I was just about to say that.
Yeah, he's down at 22nd in estimated plus minus among guards, behind guys like Levine, Beal, Van Vliet. So the advanced numbers don't love him quite as much, but I think he'll be in there because of record and clutch stuff and just, King's love.
Yeah.
But he's in this chart as well. So Booker's at the top. The Suns are 30-19 with Booker. I think it's now 31-19 since they beat Minnesota, and 11-16 without him. That's the best of any of these guys. Lillard is next up, basically tied. The Blazers, though, were still below 500 with him, just by a touch, but 5-13 without him. And so I think that's the case, is he's been so unbelievable offensively, and now we're seeing what the team's like without him, and it's pretty awful. And they dealt with injuries to their stars even when Lillard was playing still. Grant and Simons both missed a lot of time. So I don't know. I think he very well could make it. I think he's gotten a lot of like love and respect throughout the season that I could see transferring into being votes by when people have to submit their ballots. But I don't think I personally would have him. I'll say that. I think the games played and the record, I think there's players who have both of those cases over him. There's players who have one of those cases over him. And, it's not a knock in a huge way, but we know he's not really doing much defensively either. So you're talking about an absolutely phenomenal, maybe the best guard offensive season in the league, but that's about it for his case. So I personally just don't value that as highly as some of these other guys. But do you have your 6? Am I putting you on the spot too much? Can you give me your 6 guards here?
I think I can do 6. Well, it's gonna be Luka, Shea, I would say
an
Donovan.
Interesting one, but I feel like he has to make it.
Yeah, he has to be in there. Sometimes I want to put Kyrie. Well, I'm just gonna say Dame. I think Dame should be in it. So Donovan, okay. Dame, and Book, and I mean Kyrie kind of has to be in it. Like I want to put Fox in it, but I think if it's a tie, then you give it to Fox, like narrative wise, and just bringing the Kings back, and just how he's been in the clutch. I think you have to put Fox in it.
Okay.
And I think they like putting younger dudes in All NBA. I like they like putting first time guys in there, and there has to be one this year. Book was,
especially third team.
Yeah, I think Book was the dude last year, right?
Yeah, but he was first team, which would make it even crazier for him to go from first team to off just because he missed 25 games. So I think you said Donovan, and then I thought you were saying Doncic. Which one is it?
Donovan Mitchell second. I said Doncic and Shea for first.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I think I have Luka and Curry. I
didn't put Curry in.
Well, yeah, right. I feel like hard. So Fox out then?
Yeah, Fox is out.
Okay. I have Fox out too, and I feel like people are going to be upset if he doesn't make it, but I just don't think he's been one of the best ones.
Yeah, I think if Curry is in, Book is in, and if Curry is out, Book is out.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think they're tied to each other now.
Curry's at 51 games played. Book is at 49. They're definitely the bottom two in terms of that this season. So yeah, I go Curry, Luka in the first team. I go Mitchell, Shea in the second team. and then I go Booker, and I actually want to put Holiday as third
Drew
team.
Holiday? I mean, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, dude scored 51 points on Wednesday, which is
I mean, everybody
crazy.
scores 51 in the league now, but
Yeah,
I think
right. Him and Sadiq Bey, both out there scoring 50. But yeah, I think Drew, with how much time Middleton missed and how much he was able to step up his game, and he's still maybe the best perimeter defender in the NBA. His pull-up three is like elite at this point. He does it way more, and it seems like it goes in more, and just helping that team become the best one in the NBA. Like, I think the Bucks need two guys on here, and I think Holiday, it's not just sort of like a, shoe in just because he's on a good team. Like, he's also earned it. So yeah, those are my 6. And I do have Book. So no Ja, no Fox, no Harden for me, no Lillard for me, and that's where I'm at. But I don't have a vote, so whatever. All right, that'll do it for all NBA. Let's talk about this Nuggets game. No Jamal Murray either on this list, of course, but we'll talk about what might shape up to be good, or they might run away and bench all their players because they're on the second night of a back-to-back. We'll get into that next. First, one more quick break. All right, so Denver's playing New Orleans on Thursday night on TNT. I'm looking at the injury report right now, Aaron. Nikola Jokic is questionable with right calf tightness. He doesn't tend to miss a ton of games, but they have done the benchings on the back-to-backs in the past. But Jamal Murray's not on the injury report here. Michael Porter Jr. is not on this injury report. So it feels like they're going to play their guys. I'm not sure. Let's assume everybody plays. Let's assume everybody's healthy. I think this might end up being like one of the better games of the season if everybody does play, because I think the Suns will really look at it as a test and an opportunity to get some momentum and chemistry going, to prove themselves as a team with how much questioning of them is still out there about, can they figure it out? Do they have enough depth, etc.? So tell me what you think. Do you feel like both teams will play all out, and what kind of chances do you give the Suns?
I'm giving the Suns a chance to win. Well, this is a couple of reasons. I think because we are just probably at least even or better now. And they're coming off a back-to-back, I think, on Friday. And I think if the game just gets at least a little out of hand, Malone's just going to call it. And when it's a game like that, especially if you have the first locked up already, there's no need to take a chance and just keep playing your guys, especially the Suns do have more to prove in a game like this, and they don't. So, but Mike Malone is a good coach, so I could see him just kind of taking on like what's coming. I can see it, he wants his team to take on some of the stuff like this, especially a tough team that they're probably going to play in the playoffs, and he takes that kind of stuff serious. So I can see them coming out hard, but I think if it does get out of hand, Suns wise, then I think he'll pull back and just be like, all right, it's a back-to-back. Let's just sit this one out.
Yeah, so one of the things I was going to bring up with the Wolves game that I think we could see again in this one is I was expecting, because even when it was Cam Johnson out there at the 4 early on in the season, because Minnesota was one of the first teams the Suns played back when they were still fully healthy for the first 2 weeks of the year, they put Cam Johnson through a bunch of screens and they tried to make Cat guard, run around the floor and contain that, and they didn't really do that in this one, partially because Cat was guarding Okogie. But I still think that there's ways to try to punish that, and they didn't really do it. With Denver, the case is the same. Can they make Michael Porter Jr. have to guard through traffic? I would imagine Gordon is going to guard Durant. I would imagine that KCP is going to guard Booker, which puts Murray on Paul, and then that's it. And then you have the centers. So can they use MPJ, who will also be guarding Okogie, but try to really mess with teams and pick them apart a little bit more? Because maybe that's asking too much, but we did just talk about how they use more of their normal offense in that last game. What I want to see is them start to integrate some of that stuff like they did against Denver in the second round a few years ago of okay, not only are we going to be able to run our stuff to the absolute best level, but we're going to do it in a way that also makes your best guy or your worst guys on defense have to be involved directly in the action defensively. I think Durant's smart enough to pick up on that and start to kind of mess with it in an unspoken, just sort of on the fly way, even in, game 5 with these guys. And I really think that they could exploit that because we know MPJ is not a great defender. We know Jokic is not a great defender. And even Murray is not a great defender. So that's kind of what I mean when I say I feel like they're going to get up for this one. The Suns is they're going to want to show Denver and anyone watching that, hey, we have like significant advantages over this team, and don't forget it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think we're probably going to see a lot of, because at first, pretty much a lot of teams in the West knew what we were running. It was like, Book is going to initiate the offense sometimes. CP is going to initiate the offense sometimes. Mikal was learning how to do it before we traded him, and that was going to be pretty important. But I think that's when it's really going to show, is when we have KD bringing the ball down the court and he's starting the offense off, and we're kicking it off that way. Like, I think that's when teams are going to know, like, oh, like they can put a different kind of pressure on us now, because it was kind of just a night to night basis, or not a night to night basis with Mikal. It was like sometimes he was going to do it, sometimes he wasn't. Like, we're going to have 3 dudes that are pretty much in attack mode on offense now, and pretty decent defenders at the same time. So that's what I see. Like, I think it's going to show more in the game on Friday, is just the attack that we have now with KD Book setting picks for KD and getting the switch that he wants, and Ayton coming up, and Jokic getting matched up with KD sometimes. Like, I think that's when it's going to really show what this team is.
I think it could also be a pretty big game for some of the guys off the bench with size. Denver doesn't feel like they still fully know their rotation, but I think the Nuggets are best off the bench when they just put as many big guys that they can out there. Jeff Green, Christian Brown, the rookie guy, Zeke Naji is better than Thomas Bryant, in my opinion. They did that against Milwaukee in the game last weekend, which I watched. And so maybe they are able to handle it. But if I'm the Suns, I just try to punish them that way and say, TJ, we're going to run stuff for you. You're going to be bigger than whoever's guarding you. Maybe try to run some pick and roll and see if Zeke Naji can keep up and get some lobs to Biyombo with Payne, whatever the case is. I think that's something that is exploitable about Denver. Is Malone wants to play small. And if he does, or if you catch him doing it for a few minutes, you got to just attack that. Speaking of Mikal, though, who you mentioned. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, Monty's still old school. So if you try to go small in any scenario, he's going to go big. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Like, he's just always going to choose the bigger lineup to attack.
I was proud of him last night against the Wolves. I feel like there was just like Kevin Young or whoever must have just been in his ear, like, do not put Jock Landale at the 4 against Cat and Gobert. Dario doesn't play here anymore. We got rid of everybody who you can use to do that. It's not an option. But do not, don't even think about it with Jock. There's no more Frank. Just cut it out. I could feel him wanting to do that. But no, I was going to say, you mentioned Mikal. Did you see the new jersey?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I was literally gonna lead the show off with that. I was like, so you drop Giannis like after that last game, he's done.
I did. I took him off the wall, and then my anniversary was last week, so my wife got me a Mikal jersey because she was probably tired of me venting to her about my YouTube comment battles with Suns fans who hated my setup here. So yeah, Mikal will live on forever here on my wall, even if he doesn't play here anymore. That'll wrap us up, I think. So I was going to try to get the FanDuel odds for the game, but because Denver plays tonight, they don't have tomorrow's odds yet with the injury reports not out and everything. So I would imagine the Suns will be favored by a bit. I think I would pick them to win, especially with Denver coming off of that back-to-back. But I really hope, and I do think as long as everybody plays, it will be the rare late March NBA game that actually matters and is worth watching. So everybody should tune in. I'll be back. I'll be on after that game with the recap show, bonus episode for everybody. That's a home game. So I'll be there and come home, do a show for all of you. Get that in your feed every single day by hitting follow or subscribe. You can also follow along at Locked On PHX Suns. In the meantime, go make Locked On NBA your second listen. Catch up on all things NBA. That show's available on all podcast platforms as well. And I will catch you guys tomorrow.